Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewport. His ship was 3 days into a routine patrol of the Kepler 442 system when everything changed. The communications officer, Lisa Brooks, turned around from her station with a confused look on her face. "Captain, we are getting some strange readings on long-range sensors," she said while checking her instruments again. "There is something big coming into the system, but it does not match any known ship design in our database." Jake moved to the sensor display and studied the readings carefully. Whatever was approaching was massive beyond anything he had ever seen. The object was easily 10 times larger than the biggest human battleship, and it was moving at speeds that should have been impossible for something that size. "Red alert," Jake commanded, and immediately the bridge lighting changed to emergency status. "All hands to battle stations and raise shields to maximum power." The crew moved quickly to their positions as Jake tried to understand what they were facing. The object continued to approach their position, and as it got closer, the sensors revealed more disturbing details. The ship was not just large, but it seemed to be made from materials that human science could barely identify. Lieutenant Commander Brooks worked frantically at her station trying to analyze the incoming signals. "Captain, I am detecting massive energy readings from the object, and it appears to be scanning our ship," she reported with growing concern in her voice. Jake watched as the alien vessel continued its approach and suddenly stopped, exactly 1 million kilometers from their position. The ship was so large that even at that distance it appeared as more than just a dot of light through the viewport. The hull seemed to shift and change colors as if it was alive. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," Brooks announced while putting her hand to her earpiece. "The signal is incredibly strong and it is being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously." Jake felt his stomach tighten as he realized they were about to make first contact with an unknown alien species. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered while taking his position in the captain's chair. The screen flickered to life, showing the image of a being that was clearly not human. The creature had pale blue skin and 4 arms with what appeared to be natural armor plating, covering most of its body. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice carried an authority that made every human on the bridge feel small. "I am Archon Veltar of the Galactic Council Hegemony," the alien said in perfect English that somehow sounded cold and mechanical. "This message is being transmitted to all human vessels and settlements throughout your space." Jake listened as the alien continued speaking and felt his blood run cold at the words that followed. "The Galactic Council has observed your species for 53 of your years since you achieved faster than light travel," Veltar said, while its black eyes seemed to stare directly at Jake through the screen. "Your expansion into galactic space has been noted and evaluated by the Council's experts," the Archon continued. "Humanity has demonstrated dangerous unpredictability and aggressive expansion patterns that threaten the stability of civilized galactic society." The alien paused for a moment and Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the silence that followed. Every member of his crew was staring at the screen with growing dread as they realized what was happening. "Therefore, the Galactic Council hereby issues this final warning to the human species," Veltar announced with the tone of someone reading a death sentence. "You have 30 standard galactic cycles to comply with the following demands." Jake gripped the arms of his chair as the alien listed the Council's requirements. Humanity would cease all expansion beyond their current territories immediately. All human military vessels would be surrendered to Council forces for decommissioning. Human space would be placed under direct Galactic Council oversight and administration. Failure to comply with these demands will result in the immediate pacification of human space by Council enforcement fleets, the Archon warned. Your species will be relocated to designated reservation worlds where you will live under Council supervision. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge of the horizon in complete silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, trying to process what they had just heard. The alien ship remained motionless in space like a massive predator watching its prey. "Captain, we are receiving priority transmissions from Earth Command," Brooks reported while her hands shook slightly as she worked her controls. "Admiral Clark is requesting immediate contact with all ship commanders." Jake nodded and stood up from his chair on unsteady legs. He had fought in the Centauri conflicts and faced enemy fire many times, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. An entire galactic civilization was threatening to destroy humanity, and there seemed to be nothing they could do to stop it. "Establish a secure channel." "To Earth Command," he ordered while trying to keep his voice steady, "and continue monitoring that alien ship." As Brooks worked to establish communications, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity had just received its death sentence. The alien vessel continued to sit, motionless in space, radiating power that made their own ship feel like a toy boat, next to an aircraft carrier. Within minutes, the face of Admiral Henry Clark appeared on their communication screen, looking older than Jake had ever seen him. "Jake, I assume you received the transmission?" the Admiral said without any of his usual pleasantries. "Yes, sir. We have a Council Herald ship sitting 1 million kilometers from our position," Jake reported while glancing at the sensor readings. "The ship is unlike anything in our database and appears to be far beyond our current technology." Admiral Clark nodded grimly, and Jake could see other fleet commanders appearing in split-screen windows as the emergency conference began. "Gentlemen, we are facing the greatest threat in human history," the Admiral announced to the assembled captains. "The Galactic Council represents over 40 alien species and controls approximately 60% of known galactic space." Clark continued while displaying tactical information on their screens. "Their combined fleet strength is estimated at over 200,000 vessels." Jake felt his hope disappearing as he listened to the briefing. Every piece of information made their situation seem more hopeless. The Council had technology decades ahead of anything humanity possessed, and military forces that outnumbered human ships by thousands to one. "Sir, what are our orders?" Jake asked, though he dreaded hearing the answer. Admiral Clark was quiet for a long moment before responding. "Return to Earth immediately," he finally said. "We have 6 months to decide the fate of our species." The communication ended, and Jake was left staring at the alien ship that continued to watch them from across space. He gave the order to return to Earth, knowing that they were flying toward either humanity's surrender or its destruction. On the massive world of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in their great assembly hall. Archon Veltar stood before the representatives of 40 different species, while holographic displays showed the locations of human settlements across known space. The blue-skinned hegemony leader felt satisfied as he reviewed the ultimatum that had been delivered to every human colony and ship. "The primitive humans have received our final warning," Veltar announced to the assembled delegates while gesturing at the tactical displays. "Within 6 of their months, they will submit to Council authority or face the consequences of their defiance." Coordinator Zexthai of the Council military forces studied the human territories on his personal display. The insectoid being clicked his mandibles together as he calculated fleet movements and deployment schedules. "The humans control 47 star systems with approximately 12 billion individuals," he reported in his buzzing voice. "Their military consists of roughly 800 vessels of primitive design." Zexthai continued while highlighting human fleet positions. "Our intelligence indicates they possess fusion weapons and basic energy shields, but nothing that poses a threat to Council forces." Other Council members nodded in agreement as they reviewed the data about humanity. The lizard-like Korthax delegate hissed softly before speaking. "The humans have shown unusual aggression for such a young species," it said, while displaying recordings from previous encounters. "They destroyed 3 hegemony scouting fleets in what they call the Centauri conflicts," the Korthax continued. "They also held Wolf 359 against superior forces for 6 months before reinforcements arrived." Veltar dismissed these concerns with a wave of his forearms. "Those were minor skirmishes against unprepared forces," he said confidently. "When the humans face the full might of the Galactic Council, they will quickly understand their position." The Archon activated a holographic display showing the Council's enforcement fleet being assembled in the Vega system. Over 2,000 ships from dozens of species were gathering under the command of Fleet Admiral Velnoth. Each vessel was equipped with weapons that could devastate entire planets. "The humans are clever primitives who discovered some advanced technology," Veltar explained to the Council. "But they lack the wisdom and experience of civilized species like ourselves." Meanwhile, across human space, the reaction to the Council's ultimatum was spreading like wildfire. On Earth, President Maria Santos sat in the emergency session of the United Earth Government, while reports poured in from every human colony and outpost. The message was received simultaneously across all human territories, reported Dr. Amanda Foster, the Director of Human Xenological Studies. Every ship, station, and settlement got the transmission at exactly the same time, regardless of distance. General Robert Hayes, the Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, studied tactical reports while trying to assess their situation. The technology required for instantaneous galactic communication is decades ahead of our current capabilities, he said grimly. President Santos listened to the reports while feeling the weight of humanity's survival on her shoulders. The Council's demands were completely unacceptable, but their military superiority seemed overwhelming. Every analysis showed that humanity's chances in a direct conflict were almost zero. What do we know about previous species that faced similar ultimatums? Santos asked while turning to Dr. Foster for answers. Foster activated her personal display showing historical data about Council expansion. 12 species have received ultimatums similar to ours over the past 2 centuries, she reported. All 12 submitted to Council authority rather than face military action. The Council's standard procedure is to identify emerging species that might pose future threats, Foster continued. They issue ultimatums when these species reach a certain level of technological and military development. General Hayes studied the data about previous Council actions and felt his anger growing. They are not interested in peaceful coexistence, he concluded. The Council wants to prevent any species from becoming powerful enough to challenge their authority. President Santos stood up and walked to the large window overlooking the United Earth capital. Outside, she could see the lights of a civilization that had worked for centuries to reach the stars. The idea of surrendering everything to alien overlords was impossible to accept. General Hayes, what is the current status of Protocol Omega? She asked without turning around from the window. Hayes checked his secure communications device before responding. All primary installations are operational, and secondary sites are being activated as we speak, he reported. Admiral Carter confirms that the Ghost Fleet is ready for deployment on your orders. Santos nodded while continuing to stare out at the city below. Protocol Omega had been developed in secret over decades specifically for a situation like this. Most of humanity had no idea that their government had been preparing for galactic war since first contact with alien species. Dr. Foster, I want you to prepare a detailed analysis of Council military tactics and weaknesses, Santos ordered. Use every piece of intelligence we have gathered over the past 50 years. Foster began accessing classified databases that contained information about every Council species and their military capabilities. Much of this data had been collected through careful observation and occasionally through more direct methods. Back on Nexus Prime Coordinator, Zexthai was reviewing energy readings from human space when he noticed some unusual patterns. Several human star systems were showing increased power generation and what appeared to be industrial activity. The humans seemed to be mobilizing their primitive manufacturing capabilities, he reported to Archon Veltar. Energy output in their core systems has increased by approximately 15%. Veltar examined the readings and dismissed them as irrelevant. Desperate preparations by primitives who do not understand the futility of resistance, he said confidently. Let them waste their resources on useless gestures. The Archon was more concerned with managing the political aspects of the situation. Several Council species were questioning whether such drastic action against humanity was necessary. The humans had not actually attacked any Council territory or vessels. The humans represent a clear threat to galactic stability, Veltar explained to concerned delegates. Their unpredictable nature and aggressive expansion must be controlled before they become a serious problem. Unknown to the Council, deep within human space, ancient plans were being activated. Hidden facilities that had been disguised as civilian installations began revealing their true purpose. Weapons that had been stockpiled in secret for decades started moving toward predetermined positions. President Santos finally turned away from the window and faced her assembled advisors. Prepare a response to the Galactic Council, she ordered with steel in her voice. Tell them that humanity rejects their ultimatum. We will not submit to alien rule, she continued while looking each person in the room directly in the eyes. If the Council wants to control human space, they will have to take it by force. The message went out across human space within hours, and the reaction was immediate. Instead of panic or despair, the human colonies began implementing defensive measures that had been planned for years. The Council was about to learn that humanity had not been idle during their 50 years in galactic space. Deep in the shadow of Saturn's rings, the massive Titan yards hummed with activity that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. Admiral Susan Carter stood on the command deck of the secret facility, watching as hundreds of ships emerged from their concealed hangar bays. These vessels had been built in complete secrecy using technology that humanity had carefully reverse-engineered from captured alien equipment. Status report on Ghost Fleet deployment. Carter requested from her operations officer, Colonel Marcus Webb, who was coordinating the massive undertaking from his position at Luna Command. All primary squadrons are moving to predetermined positions. Webb reported through their quantum communication link. Stealth systems are functioning at maximum efficiency, and Council sensors show no indication they have detected our movements. Carter nodded with satisfaction as she watched the sleek black ships of humanity's hidden fleet disappear into the darkness of space. Each vessel incorporated technology that the Galactic Council believed was beyond human capabilities. Adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself during battle, quantum jump drives that allowed short-range teleportation, and most importantly, stealth systems that made them nearly invisible to standard galactic sensors. Dr. Lynch, what is the status of Project Looking Glass? Carter asked while turning to the chief scientist who had been working on humanity's most classified project for the past 15 years. Dr. Kevin Lynch looked up from his instruments with excitement in his eyes. Admiral, the Quantum Entanglement Communication Network is fully operational across all human territories, he reported. We now have instantaneous communication capabilities that exceed anything the Council possesses. The Looking Glass project had been humanity's greatest scientific achievement since achieving faster than light travel. Using quantum entanglement principles discovered through careful study of captured hegemony technology, human scientists had created a communication system that allowed instant contact across unlimited distances. This gives us a crucial advantage that the Council does not know we possess, Lynch continued while displaying network status on his screens. They will expect our forces to have standard communication delays, but we can coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Carter walked to the main display that showed the positions of Council forces throughout galactic space. Intelligence reports indicated that the aliens were gathering their enforcement fleet in the Vega system while maintaining regular patrols of their territory. They clearly expected humanity to either surrender immediately or make desperate attacks that could be easily defeated. Colonel Webb, activate the Luna defense grid, Carter ordered while studying the tactical situation. If the Council decides to attack Earth directly, they are going to get a very unpleasant surprise. On Luna, Colonel Webb smiled grimly as he received the authorization codes for humanity's most devastating defensive system. Hidden beneath the moon's surface were hundreds of kinetic weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment for decades. These railgun installations could accelerate projectiles to nearly 20% of light speed, making them capable of destroying even the heaviest Council ships. Luna Defense Grid is online and ready for operation, Webb confirmed while watching his displays show green status lights across the entire defensive network. We have full coverage of Earth orbit and can engage targets out to 1 million kilometers. Meanwhile, at the secret testing facility near Pluto, Captain Nicole Thompson was putting humanity's newest ship through its final trials. The UES Defiance represented the cutting edge of human military technology, incorporating every advancement that 50 years of secret research had produced. Thompson to Fleet Command. Beginning combat systems test, she reported while her crew prepared for the simulation. All stations report ready for quantum jump sequence. The Defiance suddenly disappeared from normal space and reappeared 3,000 kilometers away in less than a second. The quantum jump drive allowed the ship to teleport short distances instantly, making it nearly impossible for enemies to predict or target during combat. Jump successful. Testing adaptive armor configuration, Thompson reported while her ship's hull began changing shape and composition. The armor could reconfigure itself to provide optimal protection against different types of weapons, turning the ship into a constantly changing target. Weapons systems test beginning now, Thompson announced as the Defiance opened fire on a series of target drones. The ship's AI-assisted targeting system tracked multiple targets simultaneously, while predicting their movement patterns with incredible accuracy. Back on Earth, Ambassador Charles, Reed was preparing for what might be his final transmission to the Galactic Council. For years he had served as humanity's official representative, while secretly feeding intelligence about Council operations back to Earth Command. His position had given him access to crucial information about Council military capabilities and political weaknesses. President Santos, "I have the latest intelligence from Nexus Prime," Reed reported through a secure quantum link. "The Council is completely confident that humanity will surrender when faced with their full military might." Reed had discovered that the Council's greatest weakness was their overconfidence. They had dominated galactic space for so long that they could not imagine any species successfully resisting their authority. This arrogance had made them careless about protecting their supply lines and communication networks. "They are assembling over 2,000 ships in the Vega system under Fleet Admiral Velnoth," Reed continued. "But they have left their rear areas lightly defended because they expect this to be a simple occupation force." President Santos studied the intelligence reports while finalizing humanity's response to the Council ultimatum. Every piece of information confirmed that the aliens expected either immediate surrender or a brief hopeless resistance followed by conquest. "Ambassador Reed, continue your assignment on Nexus Prime," Santos ordered. "When we begin Operation Checkmate, your intelligence will be crucial for coordinating our attacks." Operation Checkmate was humanity's master plan for dealing with the Galactic Council threat. Instead of meeting the aliens in direct combat, where their technological superiority would be decisive, humanity would use asymmetric warfare tactics to strike at Council weaknesses. "Admiral Carter, you are authorized to begin Phase 1 operations," Santos announced to the Ghost Fleet commander. "Show the Council that humanity is not as helpless as they believe." Carter acknowledged the order and immediately began issuing commands to her hidden fleet. Across human space, the ships of the Ghost Fleet began moving toward their targets while maintaining complete stealth. The Council was about to discover that humanity had been preparing for this war far longer than they could imagine. "Dr. Lynch, ensure that all quantum communication nodes are ready for maximum traffic," Carter ordered. "We are going to coordinate more simultaneous operations than have ever been attempted in galactic history." Lynch confirmed that the Looking Glass network was operating at peak efficiency. The quantum entanglement system would allow human forces to communicate instantly across hundreds of light years, giving them coordination capabilities that no other species possessed. As the Ghost Fleet ships reached their predetermined positions, Carter felt a cold satisfaction. The Galactic Council had made the classic mistake of underestimating their enemy. They were about to learn that humanity's reputation for unpredictability was well-deserved. "All units report ready for Operation Checkmate Phase 1, came the reports from across human space. "Waiting for your orders, Admiral." Carter looked at the tactical display one final time before giving the command that would change galactic history. "Execute Phase 1, she ordered. "Show them what humans can do." Fleet Admiral Velnoth stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the final ships of the Council Enforcement Fleet arrive in the Vega system. The massive vessel stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern and bristled with weapons that could reduce entire planets to molten slag. Around his flagship, over 2,000 Council ships formed battle formations that represented the combined military might of 40 different species. "Admiral, all fleet elements report ready for advance to human space," reported his tactical officer, while displaying the impressive array of Council firepower. "Intelligence confirms that human forces remain in their home systems, making desperate preparations for defense." Velnoth felt confident as he reviewed the tactical situation. The humans had rejected the Council ultimatum as expected, but their response had been exactly what previous species had attempted: frantic mobilization of their primitive fleets and pathetic attempts to fortify their core worlds. "Begin advance to the Sol system," Velnoth ordered, while settling into his command chair. "Maintain fleet formation and prepare for immediate occupation of human space." The Council fleet began moving toward Earth while Velnoth planned the swift conquest that would end human independence forever. His ships carried invasion forces that would occupy every human world, while his weapons could destroy any resistance within hours. Unknown to the Council fleet, Captain Alex Morrison was leading a strike team of 12 human ships toward the Alpha Centauri system, where the Council maintained a forward command post. The ships of his squadron were completely invisible to Council sensors, as they approached their target using quantum jump drives to cover the final distance. Morrison to all units. "We are approaching the target zone," Alex reported through the quantum communication network that connected him instantly to Admiral Carter. Council defensive forces consist of approximately 100 vessels concentrated around the command station. Admiral Carter monitored the attack from her command center while coordinating similar strikes across dozens of Council systems. "Proceed with the attack, Captain," she ordered. "Remember that speed and surprise are our greatest advantages." Alex studied the Council formation through his ship's advanced sensors, while his tactical officer, Sarah Mitchell, prepared their weapons systems. The aliens had arranged their ships in a standard defensive pattern that assumed any attackers would approach from normal space using conventional drives. "All units prepare for quantum jump insertion," Alex ordered, while his ships positioned themselves for the attack. "We go in fast, hit them hard, and jump out before they can respond." The 12 human ships suddenly appeared inside the Council formation, using their quantum drives to teleport directly into the enemy fleet. The Council ships were caught completely off guard as human vessels materialized among them and opened fire at point-blank range. "Target their command and control systems," Mitchell ordered while her weapons locked onto the Council command ship. "Disable their communications before they can call for help." The UES Vengeance unleashed a devastating barrage that crippled 3 Council cruisers before they could raise their shields. Around them, the other human ships were causing similar destruction as they used their advanced targeting systems to strike at critical enemy systems. Council ships are trying to respond, but their formations are in chaos, Mitchell reported while watching enemy vessels collide with each other as they attempted to turn and face the human attackers. "They cannot coordinate their defense when we keep changing position." Alex ordered another quantum jump that moved his squadron to a different position within the enemy formation. The Council ships had finally raised their shields and were returning fire, but their weapons could not track targets that disappeared and reappeared randomly throughout their fleet. "Jump complete. All units continue the attack," Alex commanded while his ships struck at the Council supply vessels that were trying to escape. "Destroy their logistics and they cannot maintain their operations." Meanwhile, in the Vega system, Admiral Velnoth was receiving the first reports of human attacks across Council space. His communications officer was struggling to process the flood of distress calls from Council facilities throughout a 100 light-year radius. "Admiral, we are receiving reports of coordinated attacks on our supply bases," the officer reported with growing alarm. "Human ships are striking simultaneously at targets across multiple sectors." Velnoth studied the reports with growing confusion and anger. The attacks were too well coordinated, and the human ships were using technology that should have been beyond their capabilities. Their intelligence about human military strength had clearly been wrong. How are the humans coordinating attacks across such vast distances? Velnoth demanded while reviewing the tactical data. Standard communication systems cannot provide this level of coordination. Back in the Alpha Centauri system, Alex Morrison was preparing for the final phase of his attack when Council reinforcements began arriving. His ships had destroyed most of the enemy logistics base and crippled their command station. But now superior numbers were closing in on his position. "Captain, we have 40 Council ships approaching from the outer system," Mitchell reported while tracking the enemy reinforcements. "They will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Alex smiled grimly as he prepared to demonstrate another human innovation that the Council did not expect. "All units prepare for emergency jump sequence," he ordered. "We are going home." The 12 human ships vanished from the Alpha Centauri system just as the Council reinforcements arrived to find their base in ruins and no sign of the attackers. Similar scenes were playing out across Council space as human strike teams hit their targets and disappeared before enemy forces could respond. Morrison to Fleet Command. "Mission accomplished," Alex reported to Admiral Carter. "Alpha Centauri command post is destroyed and we suffered no casualties." Carter smiled as she received similar reports from dozens of other strike teams. The first phase of Operation Checkmate was exceeding all expectations as human forces demonstrated capabilities that the Council could not understand or counter. "Excellent work, Captain," Carter replied while monitoring the overall tactical situation. "Proceed to Phase 2 target and await further orders." In the Vega system, Fleet Admiral Velnoth was facing a crisis that he had never imagined possible. The humans were not fighting like primitives who had stumbled onto advanced technology. Their coordination was perfect, their technology was sophisticated, and their tactics were devastating. Admiral, we have lost contact with over 60 supply bases and logistics centers. His operations officer reported with barely controlled panic. The humans are systematically destroying our ability to maintain fleet operations. Velnoth realized that his fleet was in serious danger if they could not protect their supply lines. Dispatch patrol squadrons to guard our remaining bases, he ordered, while trying to salvage the situation. We cannot allow these attacks to continue. But even as he gave the orders, Velnoth knew that he was facing an enemy unlike any the Council had encountered before. The humans were not fighting a desperate, defensive battle but executing a carefully planned campaign that targeted Council weaknesses with surgical precision. On Earth, Admiral Henry Clark was monitoring the battle, reports while preparing for the Council fleet's inevitable approach to the Sol system. Admiral Carter, what is the status of our defensive preparations? He asked through the quantum network. Phase 1 operations are complete, and Phase 2 is beginning now, Carter reported. Council supply lines are severely damaged and their fleet coordination is breaking down. Clark nodded with satisfaction as he watched the tactical displays. Prepare the Vega surprise, he ordered. When the Council fleet advances, they are going to discover that we have been preparing for this war much longer than they realize. The Battle of Vega began when Fleet Admiral Velnoth ordered his massive enforcement fleet to advance toward the Sol system. Over 2,000 Council ships moved in perfect formation through space, while their commander believed he was leading them to an easy victory over primitive humans. What Velnoth did not know was that humanity had been preparing the Vega system as a trap for exactly this moment. Admiral, we are detecting unusual energy readings from the asteroid belt, reported his sensor officer while studying the strange patterns on his displays. The signatures do not match standard mineral compositions. Velnoth dismissed the report as irrelevant while focusing on his advance formation. Maintain course and speed, he ordered while reviewing his battle plans. Prepare to engage any human forces that attempt to interfere with our mission. Hidden throughout the Vega asteroid belt were hundreds of human weapon platforms that had been disguised as mining stations for over 20 years. Admiral Henry Clark had personally overseen their construction and deployment, while knowing that someday the Council would use this system as a staging area for attacks on human space. Clark to all Vega defense stations, the Admiral transmitted through the quantum network from his command center on Earth. Council fleet is in position for Operation Hammerfall. Captain Nicole Thompson commanded the lead weapon platform while watching the Council fleet advance directly into their carefully prepared killing zone. Her station and dozens of others had been built to look like asteroid mining equipment while hiding some of the most powerful weapons humanity had ever constructed. Thompson to Fleet Command, all stations report ready, she transmitted while her crew prepared their devastating surprise. Council fleet has no idea what they are flying into. The weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt suddenly revealed their true nature as their camouflage fell away, and massive railgun barrels emerged from what had appeared to be mining equipment. Within seconds, over 300 hidden battle stations opened fire simultaneously on the Council fleet. What is happening? Velnoth shouted as his flagship shuddered under the impact of kinetic projectiles traveling at 20% of light speed. Where are these attacks coming from? His tactical officer was struggling to process the sensor data as the asteroid belt erupted with weapons fire from positions that had shown no signs of military activity. Admiral, we are under attack from concealed weapon platforms throughout the system, he reported while watching Council ships explode under the devastating barrage. The human railgun platforms fired continuously while their AI targeting systems tracked hundreds of enemy vessels simultaneously. Each projectile was a solid metal rod accelerated to incredible speeds that could punch through even the heaviest Council armor. Direct hit on enemy flagship, Thompson reported while watching her targeting computer track the massive Eternal Dominion. Their shields are failing, and we are detecting hull breaches. Fleet Admiral Velnoth felt his ship shake as another kinetic round tore through his armor and destroyed an entire weapon section. Around him, the Council fleet was in chaos as ships tried to return fire at targets they could barely locate among the asteroids. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance, Velnoth ordered while realizing that his fleet had sailed into a perfectly prepared ambush. Reform at the edge of the system and assess our losses. But the human trap was far from finished as Admiral Carter's Ghost Fleet emerged from stealth positions throughout the Vega system. Over 300 human warships suddenly appeared on Council sensors as their cloaking systems deactivated, and they opened fire from point-blank range. Ghost Fleet engage, Carter ordered from her flagship while watching the Council forces struggle to respond to attacks from multiple directions. Show them what 50 years of preparation can accomplish. Captain Alex Morrison led his squadron in a devastating attack on the Council fleet's rear formations while using quantum jump drives to avoid return fire. His ships would appear, unleash their weapons, and vanish before the enemy could target them effectively. Morrison to all units, target their command ships, he ordered, while his tactical officer Sarah Mitchell coordinated attacks with surgical precision. Cut off their communications and their formations will collapse. The UES Vengeance materialized directly above a Council cruiser and fired its full weapon load into the enemy ship's bridge section. The alien vessel lost power and began drifting helplessly while its crew struggled to regain control. Enemy command ship disabled, Mitchell reported while targeting another vessel. Their fleet coordination is breaking down as we eliminate their command structure. Fleet Admiral Velnoth watched in growing horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed by an enemy he had completely underestimated. The humans were not primitive savages with stolen technology, but a sophisticated military force that had been planning this battle for decades. Admiral, we have lost over 60% of our fleet, his operations officer reported while damage reports flooded their communication systems. Recommend immediate withdrawal to Council space. Velnoth realized that his career and possibly his life were over, but he had no choice except to save what remained of his forces. All ships retreat immediately, he ordered, while watching another wave of human attacks devastate his formations. The Battle of Vega ended with the complete defeat of the Council enforcement fleet. Over 1,200 alien ships had been destroyed or captured, while the remainder fled back toward Council space in complete disorder. Humanity had won the greatest space battle in galactic history. On Nexus Prime, Archon Veltar received the devastating news while the Galactic Council met an emergency session. The reports from Vega were impossible to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. The primitive humans had not only defeated the Council fleet, but had done so with technology and tactics that surpassed anything the Council possessed. The humans used coordinated attacks across impossible distances, Veltar reported to the stunned Council delegates. Their communication capabilities exceed our own, and their weapons technology is decades ahead of our intelligence estimates. President Maria Santos addressed the Galactic Council from Earth, while the wreckage of their fleet drifted in the background of her transmission. Her message was broadcast across the galaxy and received by every Council world simultaneously. The Galactic Council demanded our surrender and threatened our destruction, Santos said while looking directly into the camera. Instead, you have learned that humanity will not be intimidated by bullies no matter how powerful they believe themselves to be. Santos paused, while letting her words sink in before continuing. However, humanity does not seek domination over other species, she said, while outlining humanity's proposal for a new galactic order. We offer a federation of equals where each species maintains sovereignty while contributing to collective prosperity. And Defense Dr. Amanda Foster presented the framework for what would become known as the Terran Accords. The old system, where powerful species dominated weaker ones, would be replaced by a democratic federation based on mutual respect and cooperation. The age of galactic empire is over, Foster announced, while displaying the proposed new government structure. The future belongs to species that can work together as equals rather than masters and servants. Ambassador Charles Reed revealed his role as humanity's intelligence agent while presenting evidence of Council corruption and oppression throughout their empire. His testimony sparked revolts on dozens of worlds as subject species demanded their freedom. The Council claimed to represent civilized galactic society, Reed said while displaying records of Council atrocities. In reality, they were nothing. more than sophisticated slavers who used technology to enforce their will on weaker species. Admiral Susan Carter established human administrative zones in the former Council territories that her forces had captured during the war. Instead of exploiting these worlds, humanity began implementing their Federation model and offering protection to species that had suffered under Council rule. The Terran Accords were signed 6 months later on Earth with representatives from over 200 species in attendance. Archon Veltar was forced to participate as an equal rather than a superior, while humanity took its place as a major galactic power. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new ship watching the first joint human-alien patrol as it departed Earth orbit. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about underestimating the species that called itself human. Never again would any power attempt to intimidate humanity through threats of superior force.